What we're going to talk about today is cultural dexterity, leadership quotient for Latinos. And let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Suri Surinder. Suri as in Tom Cruise's daughter's name, Suri. I joke about it. I say, I told Katie Holmes not to carry a torch for me, but she... It is not a Jewish name. It's actually an Indian name, and it's the short form of my last name, because my real first name goes on forever and covers a lot of the English alphabet. So people call me Suri for short. Everything you're going to hear about today, I learned at HKU. Anybody knows HKU, what it stands for? Hard Knocks University. You've all been there, whether you realized it or not, right? Life teaches you lessons that are, just a treasure. But the thing about life is it doesn't give you warning that it's teaching you. So you have to be aware. And sometimes you don't realize the lessons it's taught you until you look backwards. So a lot of this is looking backwards on a 25-year career in corporate America at big companies like Verizon, McKinsey, CenturyLink. I have some buddies here from CenturyLink. It's, by the way, the third largest telecom in the country that no one's heard of. Capital One, which I think you all have heard of, what's in your wallet. Right? In senior roles for more than 25 years. And during the course of those 25 years, no one really sat me down and told me, here's what leadership is, here's the way you should behave. I just kind of kept working hard, kept my nose to the ground, had some great mentors and sponsors, kept moving up, kept dealing with issues, stumbling through problems, making mistakes, and learning how to lead on the fly. Okay? And I didn't stop until I got very close to the top at Verizon, actually, much to my own surprise. Okay? I'm a cab driver from New York. It's true. I drove a cab for 2.5 years, evenings and weekends, when I was going to graduate school in New York. I never thought I'd amount to anything. 15 years later, I found myself running a $5 billion organization at Verizon with 5,000 employees, 5 million customers, penthouse suite, executive assistant outside, bathroom attached. I would pinch myself saying, what am I doing here? When are they going to find me out to be the imposter that I am, But my point is, I got there by, without even realizing how I got there. And then one time I was in front of an audience slightly bigger than this at Verizon, because when you reach senior levels, they expect you to go talk to folks, associates and colleagues. And one person in the back of the room, kind of where James is sitting, said to me, hey Suri, what does leadership mean to you? And I got completely screwed up. Like, I didn't know how to answer him. I mumbled and stuttered and said the usual cliches, be charismatic, have a vision, communicate well. I did all of that stuff, and I got away with it in the moment. When I came back, to my office, I started thinking about what leadership meant to me. How did I lead? How did I influence people? And then when I left Verizon and went to McKinsey, I started doing some research on it. And then when I left McKinsey, went to CenturyLink and Capital One, I continued working on it. And then when I left all of that and started my own business and came to ALPFA, I really got into it. So the results that you see here is a little bit of HKU, and it's a little bit of solid research, statistics, and data on how the best leaders lead, okay? And some real good statistics and data about how the best Latino leaders lead, okay? A couple of things that you'll find out that I hope surprises you. I hope you leave today saying, you know what, I didn't know a couple of things this guy told me. I don't really like his name. He spoke a little weird, but I learned a couple of things today that I didn't know before. Here's the first thing I want you to remember. Leadership can be measured. Your leadership skills can be measured. Just as you measure IQ, intelligence quotient, and you measure EQ, emotional quotient, you can measure LQ, leadership quotient. Your leadership quotient is a number. It can be measured. I didn't mention to you, I'm an engineer by training, a recovering engineer. I'm a quant jock. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, you can't improve it. So there'll be a lot of courses that you will hear, here and other places about all of the soft and fuzzy parts of leadership. Soft and fuzzy doesn't sit right with me, okay? I will show you how you can measure your leadership, but here's the catch. You can't do it yourself. Who do you think measures your leadership every day? Your staff. The people who follow you. The people who follow you measure your leadership every day. You don't realize it. You don't realize it. Because they do it, you know where they do it? There is no poll in this election. There is no number report card that comes out in you. Today, so-and-so's leadership quotient was 5.5 on a scale of 0 to 10. Okay? It happens in the hearts, minds, and souls of the people who follow you, and they don't even realize they're doing it. But I'm going to show you how they do it. I'm going to show you how your followers measure your leadership, okay? And I'll show you how you can actually leverage your strengths based on that measurement, and I'll show you how you can address your opportunities based on that measurement, okay? So that's sort of the premise for today, so keep that in mind. We'll talk about some modeling first for the first 30 minutes. Then we will talk about the 3 metrics that we will measure, okay? For us as Latino leaders. By the way, just so you know, I stand here before you an Indian by birth, but Latino by marriage. I forgot to mention in all of my journey, when I was 25 or 26, I met a really beautiful Puerto Rican woman where I was teaching at the City University of New York. And got married, and we were very efficient and effective in our collaboration, and we promptly produced a person, it's a 19-year-old person, who is now 19 going on 39, goes to Indiana University, part Puerto Rican, part Indian. Yeah. Some of my experience on Latino, culture that you will hear about today comes from there also. Okay, so there's a little bit of research, there's a little bit of marriage, there's a little bit of experiential learning. Credibility, trust, and respect. So we'll talk about this. Okay, so here's the first thing I'll tell you. When we started doing research on this, we went to followers, not leaders. Plenty of books interview leaders. Plenty of books interview leaders. Not a lot of books talk about followers. Okay? We went and talked to followers, and we said, what prompts you to follow a person? Is it rank? Is it position? Is it charisma? Is it personality? Is it gravitas? Is it executive presence? What makes you follow a leader? You know the answer that came back? It's very interesting. These 3 things. People came back and told us of all of the factors that we presented to them that they could possibly think of in picking a person to follow with their hearts, minds, and souls, and in committing to the direction that they were leading them. These 3 things were the most important ones: credibility, trust, and respect. We call them the currencies of influence. Every time I've forgotten this lesson, I have failed. Followers pick leaders based on these 3 things. Some of you have big titles, powerful positions. I've been there. Every time I let that position go to my head and I started believing my own press and I thought I could lead by fiat and mandate, I failed. I failed. Best leaders in the world lead by getting their followers to want to follow them. Please remember this. If there's nothing else that you take away from this, please remember this from the mouth of a sinner who has committed mistakes. Okay? People elect leaders. People choose to follow leaders. And the ultimate power of great leaders is they get people to want to follow them. By the way, do followers just have to be people who report into you? On the contrary, when I say followers, I don't necessarily just mean your own team. Some of you might be individual contributors. Who else can be followers other than your own team? Who else? Cross-functional. Can I ask you something? How many folks, all of you work in large companies, how many folks can tell me honestly that your company isn't the matrix? How many companies today's world is a matrix environment. I know it, I felt the pain. Your scorecard will have 5 metrics on it. 4 of the 5 metrics has to be collaboratively owned by other people who don't report to you. Is that not true? So your accountability will far exceed your authority. Your accountability will far exceed your authority. And if you think this is just a temporary situation, a temporary disease, a temporary illness, I'm here to tell you, banish that notion from your minds. It only gets tougher as you move further up. If you think, once I get that corner suite over there, I'll have everybody reporting to me and I can do what I want to do. It actually gets worse. Because when you're CEO of a large company, you have to deal with Wall Street, stock price. I don't report to you. You could do the most fantastic things in your company, and it won't matter, your stock price will dip. Okay? You have to deal with the union. Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, a fascinating progression. There was a famous book, I think in the 80s or early 90s, called Influencing Without Authority. But influencing and being authority and accountability is almost kind of the next step.
Yes.
It's like get real.
Yes.
You're not just here to influence. You're here to get things done.
Yes.
Even if you don't have the authority, and those people don't report to you.
Got it. Beautifully said. That's it. You never say, okay, you're not accountable, don't worry, these people don't report to you. You still have to deliver outcomes. Ultimately, all of you are paid for delivering outcomes. And you'll have to deliver outcomes through people that don't work for you. The way to lead them, like I said, is through these 3 currencies. If you earn these currencies from them, you'll be successful. If you don't, you won't. By the way, I say this as the father of a 19-year-old going on 39. There is a point in their lives, and those of you that have kids will recognize what I'm saying, where you can tell them you're going to go to bed at 9 p.m. or 9 p.m. Take a pick. And they'll listen to you. Okay? I don't know when the transition happens, but somewhere in the middle of the night when you're not watching, there comes a day when you can't say that to them anymore because they don't listen.
It's before 14.
Joe knows because he's dealing with that. By the way, his daughter is fantastic. His daughter is not like that at all. She's very, very nice. But yes, that's the truth. Credibility, trust, and respect. Okay, influence. If you earn those currencies with your kids, it'll be much easier to influence them to get them where they need to go. Same thing with partners, by the way. Tina Turner was right. Love has nothing to do with it. Now, some of you in the room will say, no wonder that's why you're single at 51. Because I am. Okay, but I will say this to you. Okay. We have done studies on this with marital relationships and partner relationships, and we find that relationships where credibility, trust, and respect are high are healthy, and there's a high probability of the folks sticking together. The minute one or more of this drops, you're in trouble. Trust me, okay? How do you earn these 3 currencies of influence? You earn it by building 3 assets of impact. You generate currencies by building assets. Assets spin off currencies, okay? Here are the 3 assets of impact that you need to build based upon research to earn these 3 currencies of influence. Resources, relationships, results. I'll tell you what they are in a second, okay? So you earn credibility by building the asset of results. The minute you deliver results, you're going to earn credibility, okay? With all your followers, which, remember, includes your team, your peers cross-functionally. Can your boss be your follower? Yes. In fact, you know this, you have to influence your boss in order to get stuff done. Just because you report to them doesn't mean your boss can be your follower. But you have to earn credibility through results. Remember back in your life, in your professional life, the moments where you delivered significant outcomes for your business in your jobs. Did you not have more traction with the person to which you reported? I will guarantee you did. So if you're saying to yourself, I wish my boss would listen to me more, I could get so much more done if that happened. I want you to say to yourself, what have I done lately for the business? And the more you focus on delivering outcomes, the more influence you'll have on your boss. Trust through relationships. Trust through relationships. Can I ask you something? Is there a conflict between those two? Credibility through results and trust through relationships? Do you think they always go well together? Why not?
Because sometimes when you are creating relationships, people want to take advantage of that relationship to not deliver the results as they want to take.
That's life's experience. Joe?
You may get great results, but somebody else may take credit for it.
That could happen too. That could happen. That happens a lot of the time. Yeah.
Sometimes you're focused on short-term results and you sacrifice the long-term.
There you go. Think about people in your organization that you know that are pretty good at turnaround situations. They seem to be delivering results pretty fast. Okay, think about somebody. I don't care who it is. And think about their relationships. Have they broken glass to get there? Chances are there are people that you know who are great at delivering outcomes and building credibility, not that good at earning trust by building relationships, because these two are uncorrelated. They sound similar though, don't they? Credibility and trust, kind of sort of the same. Not really. They're uncorrelated variables. Actually, they're negatively correlated for the reasons that you guys mentioned. People that deliver results typically have to have tough conversations with folks that are going to do it for them. And those conversations can rupture relationships. On the flip side, people who are very careful about building relationships have a tough time having those tough conversations. Chances are they will not deliver stretch and breakthrough outcomes. Lastly, respect through resources. What do I mean by that? When I say resources, what do you think I mean by that? Is it Donald Trump resources? No. It is people. What else could it be? When you say respect through resources, it could be the size of your organization, for example. Okay, it could be. What else? Yeah. Knowledge. Knowledge. What earns respect? I'm standing up here before you. You don't know me from before. I have to deliver results for you to earn credibility. I have to build trust with you, to build a relationship with you to earn trust. And I have to show you that I'm master of my domain. Quote from Seinfeld. How many of you watch Seinfeld? Different context, but same phrase, right? Don't think about that context, right? But am I smart in my space? If I want to earn your respect today, I have to prove to you in an hour and 15 minutes that I'm smart in my space. That's my accountability, right? Are you smart in your space? When I say resources, I could certainly mean people resources. It could mean financial resources. A lot of people respect Donald Trump, despite the hair, right? But what I'm truly talking about is intellectual resources, being smart, okay? So essentially, be smart, be good, be effective. Class is over, we can all leave. I'm oversimplifying, exaggerating for effect. Essentially, that's what it is, okay? Now, if it was that easy, we wouldn't be here for an hour and 15. How do you build those assets of impact? You build assets by investment. And in order to build those assets of impact, followers said to us that leaders need to make 3 investments of intention. Currencies of influence, assets of impact, investments of intention. So, to earn respect, you build the asset of resources, intellectual resources. You build that asset by investing intentionally in competence. You earn trust by building relationships. You build relationships by investing intentionally in character. You earn credibility by building results. You build results by investing intentionally in capabilities. Okay? Now, what do we mean by competence? Here are the 10 elements of competence that correlate most strongly with respect. Yeah, Joe.
Sir, do your data show that this works truly cross-culturally, as opposed to just in, say, the United States or in big business?
Great question. Yes, this data works cross-culturally, globally, but how this model works varies by culture. So Latinos may go about earning respect in a slightly different manner than non-Latinos. And that's what we'll talk about in a second. Great question, yes. But these 10 things, so when you say competence, you say, well, I'm good at my job. I'm really good. I'm a subject matter expert. Guess what? There is 9 other dimensions of this competence so your job is here. But look what else, your function. So if your job is in recruiting, I'm making this up. That's great. Subject matter expert in recruiting. How well do you know HR? How well do you know your company culture? See that? How well do you know the platforms in your company? By platforms, I mean basically the systems, the infrastructure, the reward and recognition platform, the appraisal platform, in this example. Okay, there are other platforms, okay? But how well do you know the platforms? How well do you know your people, to your point? How well do you know your people? How well do you know processes within the, do you see what I mean? Behind that one word of competence, this is a very nuanced and textured word, folks. There are multiple dimensions of competence. Are you beginning to see what I'm building for you? This is how you measure your leadership. How good are you at these things? Because people are watching you and they're measuring you on these things. You don't realize it. How cross-functional competence, you mentioned cross-functional. How good are you at other functions that you interact with? Customers, how well do you know your customers, your competition, and your industry? Now, the reason we've broken it out in this order is these are entry-level competences, these are mid-level competences, and these are senior-level competences. I'm building a jigsaw puzzle for you, starting with the 3 letters at the bottom. Okay? Now, come to character. What are the 10 elements of character most associated with trust? Here's the interesting thing. I don't see charisma on there. I don't see height on there. I don't see attractiveness on there. God knows if that was important, I wouldn't be senior.
Thank God for not seeing height. That was wrong.
There you go. What do you see on there? This is, again, research tells us this. Followers say, here's what matters for us to build a relationship with our leader. Are you authentic? I'll define it in a second, by the way. But you guys know directionally what that is. Are you balanced in your thinking? Are you even-keeled in your temperament? Are you honest? Are you transparent? Are you caring? Think about that. Is there room for caring in corporate America? I think there is. If you genuinely care for people, they will walk through walls for you. Right? It doesn't mean you don't have to let them go. You can let them go in a caring manner, and they will remember you for it. I've done it. Okay? So caring, giving. Are you a giving person? Are you a team player? Are you reliable? Are you aligned in terms of your words and your actions? Again, entry level, middle, senior. Okay? Capabilities, what do we mean by that? Envisioning. Can you envision where you want to go? Developing people, these senior level capabilities, negotiating, decision making. Mid-level, you're managing folks now, target setting, managing, motivating. Entry level, planning, collaborating, communicating. Okay, those things. Now, interestingly, you'll note all of these are nouns, all of these are adjectives, all of these are verbs. When I built the model, I didn't realize this. Then I realized life is telling me something. This is all about what you know. This is all about who you are. And this is about what you do with what you know and who you are. It's not enough just to have this or this or this. You almost need all 3. Okay? If any of you went to West Point, I was speaking to a friend of mine who went to West Point, and I was telling him about this model. And he looks at me weirdly, with a quizzical look on his face. I said, what's the matter? I said something wrong, didn't I? He says, no. You know what the motto of West Point is? I didn't know this, I swear to you, when I developed this model, okay? Know, be, do. There is convergent validity. When you find the truth, multiple roads will lead to that truth. This is, I believe, obviously, if I wasn't a believer, I wouldn't be here, but I'm an evangelist for this way of thinking. This is the truth of leadership, okay? All of these things are critical. Now, the first column, you could say, is IQ, intelligence quotient, very specific intelligence quotient, okay? It's not general, it's specific, these dimensions, IQ, and it's all about the head, okay? This one is EQ. How many of you have heard about EQ, emotional quotient? Great, fantastic. There's plenty of articles written on it, proven fact. People with high EQ have a better chance of success in life than people with just high IQ. IQ and EQ is more highly correlated with life success than IQ. So EQ, right? It's all about the heart. And then this is XQ, execution quotient, and it's all about the hands. Head, heart, hands. So you could think about this as IQ, EQ, XQ, head, heart, hands, respect, trust, credibility. You could also think about this as results management, results leadership. You could think about this as people leadership. You could think about this as thought leadership. Different ways to look at the same thing, okay? And here's the equation. IQ plus EQ plus XQ, I told you I was a mathematical android, equals XQ, equals LQ, leadership quotient. Now, you can measure this, you can measure this, and you can measure this. Therefore, you can measure this, okay? You can find out which of these areas, and I'm going to take you through this. You're going to find out about yourself today. I'm going to take you through a quick assessment, okay? And you don't have to share your results. Don't worry, I won't make you talk to the other person. You know, tell them, I don't know how I hate those things. It's like, please don't do this to me. But this is all just for you. You know, you can assess it yourself and come to, and by the way, if you get a chance to, try to be careful and gentle with it. Give it to somebody else, because truly your assessment will be biased. Okay, by the way, there is a gender bias. Women tend to under-assess, men tend to over-assess themselves. It's kind of interesting, right? There's a self-assessment bias. So don't just rely on it. Give it to people you trust who are not going to break your heart. Be gentle with it. It's careful. Yes, sir? Beautiful question. So you see how you're thinking now? You're saying, okay, if I can measure it, that's a fantastic. How do I measure my progress on it? So these are like muscles of the body. If you continue working this, you can remeasure, go back. So our instrument actually looks at your self-assessment. We'll have people who report to you assess you, people around you, your peers assess you, and people above you assess you, okay? And I'll show you that in a second. And then over the course of time, we build action plans for you based upon, number one, leveraging strengths. After doing this for a long time, what we find is it is very, very difficult to get really good at a huge weakness here. That may be counterintuitive for you. Most of the time, we are analysts by nature. I don't know, if you see a report card, I used to do this all the time with my son. I'd see a report card, most of the time he'd get A's, he'd get a couple of B's. My first question will be, how did you get the B and what happened? And I'd lose him in 2 seconds. Because he said, Dad, I got all of these A's, what's the matter with you? And then I would say, work on the B's, son, let me help you. Here's this, he was never very good at biology and chemistry, and I'd sit down with him and I'd help him through all of that, and he'd work really hard and he'd come up with another B. And then somewhere in the course of that, I realized instead of focusing on the B's, I want him to focus on the A's, because that's what he loves to do, that's what he's really good at, and that's what he's going to do in his life. Go ahead, Joe.
The whole series of popular business books now, Know Your Strengths.
Yes.
And to me, it's interesting on the impact that has on corporate learning and development. Because, just as you said, it was an evaluation, set up, when we get this, we're going to send you to a seminar. As opposed to saying, you're really strong at this, we're going to move you to another job where you can really excel and not only that, how you believe it as your son believes, the things that he does very well.
Brilliant, Joe. Joe is the senior guy at Abbott, by the way. Yeah.
Not necessarily brilliant.
No, but that's good. But can I tell you something? I want all of you to do what Joe's doing. Please, trust the force, Luke. You have nuggets of insight in you. I want you to speak up and contribute, because everybody will learn. You see how Joe contributed? I didn't think of what he just said. Right? I want you to speak up and contribute in this session. This is a collaborative learning session, social media learning. Okay? So please do what Joe is doing. But that's a brilliant comment, because yes, focusing on the strengths in your job, I want you to do this. When you get your next appraisal, I want you to take a chance that you won't get fired and talk to your boss and say, I want you to spend an hour and a half with me on my strengths and how I leverage my strengths better, and I want you to spend 15 minutes on my weaknesses and how do I manage my weakness so it's not a fatal flaw. Yeah.
From your experience,
Right.
compared to other cultures.
Fantastic. So you see, this is beautiful. I love you guys. So can you hold on to that question, because it's coming on the next slide. I promise I'll get to it. Okay, I promise. So I can tell you initially the answer to the question is, where do you think, let me ask you the question, a lot of Latinos in the room. Of these three, which one do you think Latinos are really naturally inclined towards? You know the answer, the heart. You know the answer, right?
But being heart inclined doesn't necessarily mean that you have a high EQ.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay? So a lot of people say, well, I'm emotional. My emotional quotient is high. Being emotional and having high emotional quotient are different things. And I'll tell you that in a second. It's a very, very good point. But I will say this, that Latinos are very focused on relationships, so that's number one, okay? That sometimes gets in the way of delivering outcomes. I'm just the messenger, be gentle with me. And this is an average statement. Averages hide a lot of sins. They don't represent you. You are an individual. I'm not talking about you individually. I'm talking about a culture on average, okay? That relationship nature tends to impact our ability to deliver outcomes. And what do you think matters in the C-suite the most? Right? EPS stands for earnings per share, not effort per share. Yeah, Joe.
You know, for those of us that lead diversity teams at, ALPFA or NABA, Mission or whatever, it's an interesting issue because there are some people who really dive into those efforts and are willing to wave the flag of the organization, but the results aren't very good.
Yes.
And so I benchmark with other firms. Some firms decide who participates on the team based on their results. So it's two really different approaches.
In different organizations,
Yes.
right? So hang on to that thought also, Joe. I love, and I know you had a comment, but hang on to that because more is coming on that. You had a comment, I'm sorry. Yeah, didn't you raise your hand? No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point you out. Yeah, but feel free to jump in anytime, okay? Any contributions. Agree or disagree, but you don't have to buy what I'm selling you, by the way. Actively think about it. If you don't agree, say, hey, stop, I don't agree. I fine-tune this all the time based upon feedback from folks like you, so please do that, okay? So anyway, bottom line is, heart is strong for Latinos. A little bit of the hands can be improved. The competence piece is also very strong because Latinos tend to be very respect-oriented culture. Respect, though, is important. I need to be respected. And that leads to a drive for building competence, okay? So I hope that answers, but I'll then come back in more detail, okay? These are the definitions, and I won't go over them with you, but each term in there is defined: capabilities, character, and competences. By the way, if you want copies of the presentation, Anita Gonzalez is sitting over there, and she will take business cards from you or your names and emails, and we'll get you the copy of the presentation. Don't worry, okay? So you don't have to make a lot of notes and so on. Anita, by the way, is fantastic. Another example of a multicultural, individual, half Japanese, half Puerto Rican, fluent in Japanese and Spanish. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. Anyway, so these are the definitions, okay? Then, yeah, Joe. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There's a new dimension that Charlie is introducing into the byline of ALPFA, and that is that of character.
Yes.
So can we spend just a couple minutes looking at that?
Sure.
And interpret what that means for ALPFA?
Yes.
So,
Yes. So Charlie Garcia, the new CEO of ALPFA, has this new vision for ALPFA that says the mission of ALPFA is to develop and empower Latino men and women to become leaders of character for the nation in all sectors of the global economy. The reason I know this word for word is he told everyone to remember this by heart because he was going to test us at the convention. It's important, though. It's important. Everybody needs to be aligned. It's a small trick, but it's an important one. You do get. It's on tape, so yeah, we go. So here are the elements of character. Transparent, the extent to which you've been able to demonstrate openness and transparency about yourself and your life with those around you. How transparent are you? Okay? Transparency is very difficult. Why is it difficult? Why is it difficult? Transparency about yourself, about the work. Secrets? Yeah. Do you trust everyone? Yeah? Excuse me? Vulnerability. Vulnerability. You're opening yourself up. Yeah. Likability. Right. Right. Now, again, I'll tell you there's a gender bias on this. Which gender do you think tends to be more transparent? Which? Ladies tend to be more. Disclosure. How do guys bond? Think about it. How do guys bond? When 5 guys get together, how do they bond? They have beer, they grunt, yes, right on both counts. They tease each other about their girlfriends and their wives and their mothers, okay? And they compete. They'll say, well, this team, my team is going to win, your team, okay? That's male bonding, right? How do females bond? Let me tell you what happened to me today. It's a natural gender-based trait, transparency. Let me tell you something. Based on all these traits, this is the age of women. More and more findings, and I represent my male gender really well, go guys, but this is the reality. This is the reality of it. This is the age of women, because a lot of these characteristics is what millennials want in leaders today, okay?
So for Alpha, that means we're probably well positioned with the women of Alpha.
We are well positioned.
And maybe it's the concept of familia where we don't feel vulnerable.
Yes. Yes. And by the way, I'll ask you this. Since Charlie has come, are we internally more transparent with the board?
Oh, yeah.
So Joe is on the corporate advisory board of Alpha. He's seen Alpha for a long time, okay? He's seen it from the top. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in the mission of Alpha, you're building a group of powerful people from the bottom to interact multiculturally.
Yes.
Okay? So the concept of familia and everything that is within Alpha.
Yes.
How do you export that to manage and live and coexist with all the different cultures, different realities, different ways of hiding vulnerability that you have to deal with in your business model?
Correct.
And how does Alpha go from 23,000 members to 100,000 members? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Build those corporate relationships based on character to enable and empower people to live in those multicultural communities. I mean, I deal with all of Latin American countries. We're all Latinos, okay? Trust me, dealing with Mexico is not the same as dealing with Brazil.
Correct.
Absolutely different.
Correct.
Okay? And even in the modeling, I mean, when Brazil said, you could have started all over again because they're not listening to you anymore. So you need to learn all that, but you need to learn to deliver the message to corporate America that is U.S.-based.
Yes.
I think, we talk a lot about cultural competency, and it's always kind of directed to the white male or the Caucasian
Yes.
leader to be more culturally competent to deal with Latinos and Asians and Indians in the workforce, but ourselves as Latinos have to be more.
But that's a great point. And it starts with knowledge, by the way. Part of your answer is in there. It starts with knowing some of the things that you're talking about, and then with being, and then with doing. But this is part of the value system that says, what first is competence, know people, right? Know people, know cultures well, then be a certain way, be transparent, and then act on that knowledge and on who you are. So in a sense, that is the formula for doing it. It's no simple formula, I agree with you, and I completely agree. For example, I often say to people, do you guys realize that I'm Asian? I am Asian. I'm South Asian. I'm from India, right? So Asians come in different shapes and sizes and forms, but we don't think of it that way. We think of Asians in a certain manner. Same thing, Latinos. It's not a homogeneous group. 26 countries in the world speak Spanish, and they're all different. Okay, so absolutely, that's a great point. So again, I'm going to go through this quickly. Reliability. How reliable are you? Certainly in providing results, in your communication, in your relationships, how reliable are you? How caring are you? Demonstrate genuine caring and empathy. Aligned, your actions aligned with your words. Balanced, are you balanced and fair in dealing with those around you? So think about this, and Joe probably has better background on Charlie's style. I would say it kind of fits. I mean, he's pretty, balanced. Even keeled, are you able to exercise emotional self-control? This emotional quotient, like I said, not about being emotional, it's about channeling, being self-aware of your emotions and channeling those emotions productively to get the results that you're looking for. Yes, sir?
So is it stereotypical to say that Latinos challenge their emotional self-control? If we're going to say that the heart is a big deal, then, so
I would say that in some situations, folks from the Latino cultures get caught up in the moment and feel. I would say that is the case. Yes, but that is the average behavior. That's the average, and in many ways, it's great because it's warm and affectionate. We talk to people. I won't mention the companies you would recognize, and we said, "What do you think about the leadership of this company?" We asked Latinos. You know what they said? They are friendly, but they're not warm. I said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you can go up to a point with getting to know them. They're very polite, they're very friendly, but I don't feel an emotional connection. I don't feel like they genuinely care for me. I don't feel like I'm in a familia. Isn't that interesting? That goes back to sort of the emotional richness, okay? So in many ways it's good, but in some ways it could get in the way. Being a team player, remember, Latino culture is a collectivistic culture. So being a team player comes relatively easy for Latinos. Again, strength and a weakness, because we looked at appraisals. Everything I tell you is based on data. We looked at appraisals of Latinos versus non-Latinos as part of the appraisal process. Which appraisals do you think had more content about individual contribution versus group contribution? Latinos or non-Latinos? Nola? Non-Latinos, yes. Non-Latinos, a lot more individual contribution. Who do you think on average got a better appraisal? I rest my case. So I say to you, be aware. First step is awareness, okay? Are you truly focused so much on the group that you're not emphasizing your contribution, okay? So that's important, being authentic, the extent to which you're the same person, regardless of the situation or the people in front of you. I always say that if somebody's nice to you and nasty to the waiter, be very careful. It's a good rule of thumb. Just watch this, okay? Because you could be in that waiter's shoes one of these days, okay? Honest, the extent to which you demonstrate honesty, and giving, the extent to which you have been able to show that you understand the needs of others and fashion win-win solutions that meet those needs. Okay? Win-lose, when you say people that go for win-lose solutions, win-lose is short for win the battle, lose the war. Anybody that's been married understands this. Okay, so, yeah, Jose. Yeah.
Something that's interesting is I always think of the emotional quotient as know yourself, manage yourself,
Yes.
know others, and manage the relationship.
Yes.
And I think one part we need to think about is what makes ALPFA special, right? And it's because it's inclusive.
Yes.
So how do we take those inclusive values and then choose a company or change our company
Yes.
to truly be there, not just be the glossy speech. So I think that's what I always say to people. I have been away for 2 years from ALPFA, but the moment you arrive,
Yeah.
you feel
Included. Yes.
belong.
Yes.
So for those of us who are
That was your question.
it's like, how do you create that? And yeah, in every culture, there will be the genuine and the not so genuine.
Yes.
But overall,
Yes.
from day one, you feel included.
Yes. No, that's a great point.
You also have to look at some of the behaviors, and some of those behaviors may be contrary to other cultures. So the example that I give is you get a team from Ireland and Argentina that gets together, and Argentina, of course, she's a woman, she's well-dressed, she's on high heels. The Irish are tall, short, whatever. Yeah, and whereas the Irish are maybe a little more reserved, and when they first meet, the Argentina's got her arms out, she wants to hug people, and the Irish are like, whoa, So behaving the way that perhaps the average Latina would behave may not be inclusive.
But it's sort of, all in the manner.
Yeah, and do it in the manner they would want to they would want to feel included. Great point.
Yeah.
Great point, Jose. Great point. Thank you. Thank you for that contribution. Hey, I'm going to run through a little bit. These are the different ways. Remember I told you we do a self-assessment? So your self-assessment might be this score, and these are the credibility, trust, respect scores, and these are your scores underneath. Okay, so you can actually score every single attribute. Then you have upstream. Okay, so how do people above you? Downstream could be a lot lower. Okay, so your upstream score could be at 8.0. This is an example of a real person, by the way, anonymized, and your downstream score could be a 4.0. Okay, so. No. In other words, I'll tell you what you'll get. You'll get the average of all of this. So you have your self-assessment, okay, which is this. Upstream, what people think about your credibility, trust, respect. Upstream, downstream, peers. Okay, remember what I said? Different stakeholder groups, other stakeholders. Okay, and then you get an average score overall. So you could look at this score and say, drill down, 5 levels. Overall score 6.5. So now you say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Tell me, right? Say, okay, it's a 6.5. The average score for people with your tenure, okay, is whatever it is. So here's how you match up to an average benchmark, okay? And then we say, how does that drill down to other stakeholders, 6.0, 9.0, 4.0, 8.0, 8.5? So let me ask you, on this course, which stakeholder group do you think needs the most work? Which, downstream, your team, okay? Now, it could be different for different people. Some people rated very highly, people above them, their own team don't want to come to work. Do you know people like that? Their bosses think they're fantastic, and you're looking at them saying, I don't know what they see in them, right? And then the other people, their team loves them, but their bosses say, no, not so hot.
But that could be leveraging strength.
It could be, you're right, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. That's a great point, by the way. You should leverage the strength. 4.0 tends to be, it could be a fatal flaw. So I don't say, you won't get it to a 9, but manage it so it's not a huge problem.
Scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10. It's a scale of 1 to 10, yeah.
You don't want to lose stuff to be natural leaders.
Yes.
So it's no necessarily a bad thing to have a low score.
It's not, what you'll find is, it's not bad, but again, when you look at implementation of things, if your downstream CTR factors are low, the finding is, it's almost like doing a diagnosis on an ECG, okay? If your heart isn't pumping properly, chances are that root cause is going to result in other symptoms. And in this case, you won't realize it, but there'll be a lot of friction when you're trying to get stuff done through your team. And you won't know why. You'll just have a vague sense of discomfort and unease. I'm not able to influence my team. This is why. Because they don't have credibility, they don't have trust, and they don't have respect. And unless you fix this and earn those currencies, you'll continuously have problems. Okay, so that's what I mean is, that's why it's important. Again, some of these scores, when you look at, it's very difficult to be balanced across all three, because I mentioned to you the reasons why. High credibility leaders, these are the high C leaders, these are change agents, the turnaround artists who come in, they've got to turn around a department or an organization, they don't have time to build relationships, they'll come in and go. Okay, high C but low trust and low respect. Then you have high trust leaders. These tend to be the mentors and the coaches in organizations, the teachers. Everybody loves them. Everybody feels comfortable with them. But again, may not have high credibility, may not have high respect scores. High respect scores, these are the people who are the subject matter experts. Okay, at McKinsey, for example, a strategy consulting firm, a lot of high R leaders. Okay, a lot of high R leaders. Because it's, you sell your gray matter in a consulting company, okay? Not very, maybe, prickly to work with sometimes. In fact, people would call it a badge of honor. I worked for this guy. He was like the toughest guy around, but he knows his stuff, okay? So high respect. And then two-dimensional, high R and T, high C and R and high C and T. Very difficult to find high CTR leaders, very difficult, okay? Because it's tough to balance it, okay? And if you think about yourself, you'll know what mode you go in. The other thing, and Joe mentioned this, is what we found is what really matters is not even just your CTR profile, what your scores are, but how it matches up to the company that you're in, okay? And so I don't know what the companies that you work in, there were a few people that mentioned, Sun Life and Boeing and Abbott, I know is here, CenturyLink is here. Think about the companies that you're in. What CTR culture is there at your company and in your organization? Is it heavily results focused? So high credibility organization? Is it heavily relationship focused, high trust? Or is it heavily subject matter focused, high respect organization? What kind of organization are you a part of? And does your profile, your leadership profile match that? Okay, so I can tell you, for example, my take, okay, this is my take, please don't sue me. I think Verizon is a highly outcome-oriented organization. If you don't deliver results for 2 or 3 quarters, you know, they will come down like the thing from Entourage. You'll have the 5 people in dark suits with the dark glasses coming off the corporate jet. They'll beat you up for 3 quarters, 4th quarter, you'll be gone. Okay. By the way, I didn't leave that way, just so you know, in case of... Yeah.
Those CTR factors, I mean, the way you establish the numbers.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I see that as a picture of a moment in a career.
Yes.
Situations
Yes.
just have to go evolving,
Yes.
changing.
Brilliant. Yes, they will change over time. They will change over time because they'll be influenced by your actions and so on and so forth. But there is a range in which you operate. So, you know, there is a range which will be relatively stable based on your temperament and personality.
And
Yeah.
then based on the company, some of those companies may be undergoing transformation.
Yes.
So that emphasis might
Yes.
really have
Yes.
changed.
Yes. So I'll tell you
Or
alpha.
it doesn't change,
Yeah.
and it should.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you right now, I can tell you the transition happening, the way I look at it. You could disagree with me, Joe. Alpha, very relationship oriented, familiar, okay? Driven by whom? Partially by Manny, the leader. The culture of a company is a combination of the personality of the senior leaders. That's how we establish the culture. We go to the top 10, 15 people in the company and we do the CTR assessment. They set the tone. So if you think about Manny, very relationship oriented, right? So it's Alpha was like that. Charlie, I can tell you we're shifting to a credibility-based organization. Very outcome-focused. One of the first questions is, what's our scorecard? How do we measure success? I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's different. So Alpha is going through that transformation as we speak. Relationship-oriented folks might have succeeded before really well at Alpha, and they might do so now also, don't get me wrong. But if you don't have that edge on delivering outcomes, you'll have a problem sticking around in Alpha. Look at all the people that have left in the last 3 months. It's not a coincidence.
And one thing, I mean, I think KPIs are very important, okay? So you've got to have something that supports the KPI delivery with a good culture of behavior.
Yes?
Because if you don't have that,
Yes.
KPIs by themselves are going to show you the picture
Correct.
of that moment, of that quarter,
Correct.
of that, and if it's people related, of that time
Yes.
in your life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you've got to be careful how we use
Yes, because you might do things the wrong way.
That's covered with the competency.
It is covered in the competence.
How?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. It is covered. You're absolutely right, Joe. But that's a great point. Yeah, no.
I think you have to take your strength and
Yeah.
to adapt to the company culture, but also to management, because I have different managers throughout my career.
Yes,
And they have
different styles.
personalities,
Yes,
and I find that I have to deal with them differently.
very good point. So there's a global company culture and there's your local culture driven by your boss. Yes, very good points. Keep thinking. It's very good. You're absolutely right.
Question. Is there link between how you are and how you perceive others? So if you are credibility oriented based on results, would you perceive to the staff that is a relationship oriented as a
Yes, you will. Yes. In fact, your communications will reflect that. We have established certain practices of credibility-oriented leaders, for example. That stay, you know, credibility, if you have a high C leader, you've identified someone, be careful how you communicate. All of them will follow BLUF. Do you know BLUF? Bottom line up front. Credibility-oriented leaders need content first, context later. So tell up front, here's the result, here's the recommendation, here's the outcome. Then say how you got there. Context-related people that are more relational want you to build up to it, okay? The way you communicate, credibility-oriented leaders will prefer shorter emails, short messages, text messages, right? On the other hand, respect-oriented leaders, give me a white paper. Don't sell me on the option you want, tell me the 4 options. Intellectually focused, right? So tell me the 4 options, don't try to sell me a solution, my friend. Credibility-oriented leaders, get to the bottom line, what's your recommendation? Very different ways of thinking, okay? Think more about this. People in your lives, you'll be able to identify. Did somebody else have a question?
Needing more towards the, to be quick to be done with it, I mean,
It depends.
I mean, that's a US thing, I know I've been around the world and.
Yes, the US is very outcome.
Saudi Arabia, it's gonna take you a long time.
Yes, 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 yes. US is very outcome oriented, but other Middle Eastern countries, Far East, South Asian countries, very relationship oriented. I had this problem in Saudi Arabia. 4 or 5 meetings, you know, I had to strike a negotiation to build a pipeline for Verizon. And I couldn't, first 3 or 4 meetings, couldn't even talk about outcomes. So like, how's your family doing? Have some tea. Let me tell you about my kids and the oil wells and everything like that. I was like, come on, I want to get to the work. Relationship is important. Yes. Okay. So it depends on the company culture. Okay. Now, how does this match? Because the original question Joe asked was, does this vary globally? It does vary globally. How people acquire CTR varies globally. And here is the 7 elements of Latino culture that all of you are familiar with. Respeto, automatic deference to authority. This is in you whether you realize it or not. Some of you have managed to maybe kick it out of you because you're acculturated, you've been around for a while. There are generational differences, immigration status differences, and personal versus professional environmental differences. Okay, there are. So this is not, you don't behave like this all the time, not everyone, But there is an automatic deference to authority that's in your bones as Latinos. Okay. Respect granted more easily to age, power, and knowledge. Okay. Number 2, collectivismo. So place needs and groups of goals of group above those of the individual. Promote cooperation and collaboration. Very collectivistic. Let's all do this together as a group. Personalismo, expectation that colleagues will be warm, friendly, and interested. I point to you as evidence all of the hugging and kissing that happens at ALPFA Convention. You can't go out without seeing people, oh, how are you doing? It's like, when did you last meet? Oh, just a couple of days ago. And it's the guys and the women. This is not gender bias. So, colleagues warm and friendly. Okay, simpatia. So, general tendency to avoid personal conflict, desire to maintain smooth, pleasant social relations. Presente. People talk about Latino time. I say, no. Don't talk to me about Latino time or Indian Standard Time, by the way. This is the reality of it. Time is viewed as a precious commodity that should be savored. Focus on being fully engaged in the here and now. Understand me, my friends, as a Latino by marriage. I'm focused on the present. I want to extract the most juices from the present. Maybe as a result of that, I have a blind spot for the future. Maybe I may not plan as much. Maybe I'm more spontaneous. Maybe my party starts when the food gets here and the music starts. And it ends when the food is done and the music's over.
So I should turn my BlackBerry off?
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to think about it. But it's a focus on the present. Estabilidad. So constancy and consistency is valued. Rapid change is a challenge. If stuff changes too fast, by the way, Indian cultures are the same thing. We have, cricket teams, not like baseball here, but we have cricket teams in India. Do you know the people that start with a cricket team end with a cricket team? Nobody like LeBron James who leaves the Cavaliers, goes to Heat, and goes back to the Cavaliers. Doesn't happen. Very stable. Professional trajectories, very stable. You'll go back after 6 or 7 years, they'll be the same company, they'll be like half a step ahead. Over here, you'll see what happened. You became a multimillionaire in 2 years. And then what happened? You went down the tubes. It's all up and down. People change companies, right?
So this will be a challenge for ALPFA.
Yes.
Because ALPFA's going through a lot of changes.
Yes, it's going to be cognitively difficult. Culturally, it's going to be cognitively difficult for people to adjust it. We have to understand it. And then familismo, we talked about this. Family plays a dominant role, considered the most important social institution. Over and over, Latinos tell us when they pick jobs, one of the most critical factors is how much overtime is going to be needed, how much travel is going to be needed, do I have to relocate? You know why? Because I have to worry not just about my wife and my kids, but about abuela. Okay, extended family, okay? So these are the characteristics. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to map these two. So I'm going to say to you first, here's we're going to, very quickly, you're going to say, what's your credibility quotient? You can measure this. Remember what I said? Results and capabilities. When you add those two scores up, you get your credibility quotient number, okay? So I'm not going to go on the right-hand side, but just focus on the left-hand side for a second, okay? Here's the self-assessment. You don't have to take it now. You'll see it. Do it when you get your slides, okay? Look at the results quotient questions, okay? Again, this is calibrated, validated instrument. There are foundational results questions. The number of results you have delivered, the cost efficiency of outcomes, right? Now you say results is easy. That's easy. No, it isn't. A lot of factors. Timeliness of results delivery, speed at which your results have been delivered, distinctiveness of results and outcomes generated. How good are you on these things? Do you deliver enough number of results for your business? Do you deliver them cost efficiently? Do you deliver them timely with speed? When I say timely, I mean on the milestone that you indicated, okay? By speed, I mean fast. These two are different. You could say, I'll deliver a result 6 months from now and deliver it on time, you're timely, but it may not be fast, okay? And then the distinctiveness of results and outcomes. Then on the advanced side, the impact and significance, the degree of difficulty of the dive, the consistency. You deliver results year after year after year, or was this just a good year for you? Interconnectedness of outcomes and the longevity. Do the outcomes stay after you're gone? Okay? You can see the variation. These are fairly straightforward. These are more advanced. Now imagine your boss is rating you on these. Your team is rating you on these. How do you think you'll score? Okay? If you do that, there are different scores you could get, right? And you could be in different buckets. Okay, now we have benchmarks of people, okay, gender-based, culture-based benchmarks and tenure-based benchmarks, 15 minutes, okay. And so if you are somewhere, we can tell you, are you above average or below average for that, against that benchmark, okay? So we have that. Same thing on capabilities. Now this is a little bit longer, but remember the 10 capabilities? Here are those 10 ones, okay? How do you rate on envisioning? To look ahead and see an end state vision and inspire people with it. How do you rate on planning, the ability to convert the vision into an actionable plan? Keep going down. These are all individual capabilities. These are team capabilities. I won't take you through all of these. When you get your presentation, rate yourself and be honest with yourself, okay? And then you'll have the same thing. You'll see the scores. Now, you take your first score, okay, and your second score, and you add them together. That's your credibility quotient. Okay, that's your credibility quotient. Now, here's how they interact. Remember those 10 capabilities on credibility? They are here. Remember those 7 Latino norms? Here are the headwinds and tailwinds for you. So somebody said to me, I forget who it was, I think you said, what impacts Latinos, like what helps and hinders? This is what helps and hinders Latinos in building credibility, okay? Look, here it's on envisioning. The need for respect will make you a subject matter expert, and so you will be good at envisioning because of that. Because we are collectivistic, we will get group input into envisioning, so it'll be better, more robust. Here are the tailwinds. We're focused on the present. We may have a tough time setting stretch targets and visions for our teams. I'm not saying this is true, but chances are, odds are, it is. So that's the tailwind, okay? Because we're focused on stability, and we are not looking for huge changes, we may have a tough time with an accelerated ramp to the end state. We may say, give me 5 years to do something where we only got 6 months. I don't know if it's true, but think about yourself if you fall into this trap, okay? Same thing on all of these, planning, target setting, managing. There are pluses and there are minuses, okay? I won't take you through all of this, but this matrix, again, based on research on Latinos. Now, here's how you fix some of this, okay? So I'm not going to take you through every single one, but this will be in your deck when you get it. But for example, here's an example in planning. Focusing on stability is a plus while planning. It might be a negative while envisioning, but it is a huge plus for us at planning. So I say, here's a principle that will help you. This principle of small ball planning. Thinking big, think big, but start small and scale fast. We can do that. Small ball, right, in baseball? So small ball is to go for the singles. Don't go for the home runs or the grand slams, okay? Small ball planning says think big, envision big, but start small, tweak well, and scale fast. Think big, start small, tweak well, scale fast. Excuse me? Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you see that, right? Testing, tweaking, defining, refining. So that's a good example. Now, on the other side, big field planning, plans are better owned when they're devised by the people who will execute them. So our natural nature, instinct to be collectivistic helps because collaborative self-prescription and self-correction should be encouraged. It should not be your plan. It should be your team's plan.
And that's why Charlie is adding people as quickly as
You got it. You got it. You see that, right? He's adding great people on the team to say this is going to be their plan, it's not my plan. Okay? So these are examples. Again, like I said, there is a ton of these techniques. Here's another example. Target setting. We are very personable. We don't want to hurt. We want to be personable. We want to be warm, want to be friendly, right? What happens? Remember I said to you, delivering outcomes might be difficult. So when you're managing performance, here's my discovery. Focus and frequency are important. So in other words, if you're measuring 15 things once a quarter, stop that. Check with your boss before doing it. But my recommendation to you is stop that. Okay? Measure 5 things or 3 things and measure them every day. Measure them every single day. So, instead of measuring 50 and reporting on them every month. I'll give you a quick example that you won't forget. Do you know the most successful way that the Department of Transportation has found to get people to abide by the speed limits on American highways? Cameras is one. Certainly is. Now it is. It's a good point. I should remember that. Maybe the data has changed. But cameras are right. But cameras, remember, on highways, it's a little bit difficult. On streets, on city streets for sure, okay? But you also, they have cameras on toll booths on highways, but it's difficult on highways. So what else? The signs that give you your speed. It's huge. Think about the concept behind that sign. What does that sign tell you? How fast you're going. Right underneath how fast you're going, what does it tell you? The speed limit. Yeah, how fast you should be going. Now, you have a device that tells you that in your car.
Where is that device?
But for all the lead feet in the universe, that device doesn't work. So social declaration of that, of one variable. It doesn't tell you your tire pressure. It doesn't tell you that your thermostat isn't working. One thing, here's how fast you should be going, here's how fast you are going, everybody knows it. That's all it takes. Think about that concept applied to your job and how effective it can be. 2 or 3 key things, that's it, nothing else, okay? So think about that. Again, a few more things. I know we're running out of time. Oh, I mentioned this to you before. Public sharing of performance trajectories creates powerful social mechanism for managing performance. Most people want to look good in front of their peers, and most people will help those who are not looking good if they know about it. So public sharing is important, okay? Decision making. Here's another one that you might find interesting. I call it pre-decision and pre-mortem. So pre-decision doesn't start with making a decision. For significant issues, gets key stakeholders aligned. If you're going into a meeting, thank you, James. If you're going into a meeting, and you're expecting the people in that meeting to make a decision as a result of information you're going to share for the first time at the meeting, stop and shoot yourself first. Because you're not going to succeed, you're going to die anyway. Prepare the folks at the meeting, and those of you that have done this know this in advance, right? I mean, Gil knows this, he's been around the block, thank you for coming, Gil. Joe knows this, the senior folks in the room know this. Prepare the stakeholders in advance, take the time. Okay, but here's the other thing that we don't do, pre-mortem work. We do postmortems, don't we? We do postmortems really well, because hindsight is 50-50 or 20-20, right? Look at this. Decision making doesn't end with making the decision. It's important to anticipate what might go wrong and think in advance of plan B. Most people don't take the time to do this. I want you to be self-reflective on this and tell me, the last time you made a significant decision, personal or professional, moving to a different job, moving to a different city, buying a new house, marrying a different person, think about the decisions that you make. Did you have a plan B if that decision were to go wrong? I will guarantee you odds are that you didn't. You put all your eggs in that basket of that decision going right. And I tell you the next time, it's not for whether you want to buy eggs or you want to buy bread in the market. No, not for those decisions. For significant strategic decisions, if you do this alone, it will improve the effectiveness of your decision, okay? And again, remember, on the right-hand side is some of the Latino characteristics that either get in the way or help us. Here's another example on negotiating. We tend to be very empathetic. Sympathy is important. When we negotiate, typically Latinos negotiate win-win. And win-win will work if the other party on the other side of the table is also thinking win-win. It is very important that you remember this. If the party on the other side of the table is thinking win-lose, and you're playing win-win, you're going to lose. So I say to you, be prepared for hardball negotiation as well. Don't expect people to be cooperative and collaborative across the negotiation table. That will be your instinct. You will assume the best because that's what your culture tells you. And I say to you, prepare for the worst and be prepared to negotiate hardball. Here's another example. We say we're all family. We can work together. Can't we make this happen? Can we all get along? Right? Who said that? Rodney King, right? Can we all get along? Now, get this. The one key element of any negotiation is leverage. And you know what I have found? By the way, this applies for jobs as well. When you're negotiating for a raise, okay, people say, how do I talk about a raise? Do you know the best way to talk about a raise? What do you think is the best way to talk about a raise? I'll tell you the best way that's been for me is have an alternative job that's paying you higher. The best way to negotiate is leverage. Have a best alternative to a negotiated settlement that you're prepared to trigger. Right? So when I've been around the block, a lot of city miles on this car. I've been in a bunch of different jobs. You know how I've landed those jobs? Typically, I won't go for one job. I'll go for 2 jobs. And I'll be making a certain amount of money in this job, but I'll get 2 jobs that are paying me significantly higher, and I'll say, hey, I'll say to one, happened, Capital One and Chase, I got 2 jobs. Barclays, American Express, 2 jobs. And I would say, no, this person is going to pay me that. And you'd be amazed how quickly the tone changes. If you don't have an alternative, they say, no, this is HR, peer reviews, people with your tenure, I've heard it all. We can't pay you. And then I say, wait a second, I got a competitive offer from Amex and they're paying me 20% more. Now what happened to your peer review? If they really want you, they'll give you the money. Trust me on this, okay? But again, do Latinos think like that all the time? I'm not so sure. Do we? Good for you. Good for you. I love you. That's great. Hey, so these are all examples. I think, again, these are all credibility. Here's another example on credibility. Content versus context. In the classic battle, content wins out when communicating upward. 3 minutes, thank you. Communicating upward. Okay, so, when you're communicating to your boss, bluff, bottom line up front. When you're communicating to your team, explain the context more. If you just explain the bottom line, they won't understand the why. And they may give you compliance, but they won't give you commitment. So when you're explaining to your team, explain the full context. When you're going upward, go content first. And that's difficult for Latinos. They'll tend to explain everything first and then get to the end state, okay? Communicating versus connecting. Consider this. I communicated with you today. Do you feel like I connected with you a little bit today? I did connect, right? I'm an emotionally warm person. You feel like you know me. I know you do, right? There is a difference. Communication is cognitive, and it drives consideration of your point of view. It's brain, it's rational, cognitive. Connection is emotive, and it drives acceptance of your point of view. Okay? So communication will drive consideration, right? But connection will drive acceptance. And let me tell you a little secret. After living on this planet for 51 years, most action comes from emotion, not reason. People act because they are scared, or they're happy, or they're hopeful, or they're optimistic, or they're nervous, okay? But it's not a logical argument for people to act. Never forget that. Latinos are naturally strong in that. Joe.
Another great book on that last concept is Everybody Communicates, But You Connect.
John Maxwell.
Yes.
Great point. Thank you.
And there's just oodles of things in there, little tips and tricks on presentation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. Hey, so a lot of techniques like this. I know we're out of time. Then it's a trust. There's a whole bunch of techniques on trust. All of this will be in your presentation, okay? I wish we had more time. We only had an hour and 15 minutes. I do want to thank you for your time today. It means a lot to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Connect up with me. If you want copies of the presentation, give your business card or coordinates to Anita Gonzalez, the gorgeous woman sitting in the back. And any other questions? I'm going to be around for the rest of the day, and nothing pleases me more than hearing from you. I love you all, and I hope we stay connected. Thank you.